Hello and welcome back to Snapping Towels for episode number 14. I'm Cam Williams, joined by my partner, as always, Kyle Foote. Kyle, how's it hanging?
It's hanging, man. I'm really excited for playoff ball. It's here. May is here. Memorial Day is around the corner. There's a lot of interesting shakeouts at the end of the year for a lot of conferences. So I'm excited to dive into it.
Ring season has arrived. Cannot wait for some playoff ball. And you know what? Before we get into our favorite conference, one of our favorite players is actually dialed into the show. Sam Handley, Snapping Towels favorite. We're just going to grab a towel with Sam right now and snap it around. Joining us is All-American midfielder for the Penn Quakers, Sam Handley. We've been talking about Sam all year. Sam, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Hyped to have you on. First, would love to ask you, how'd you start playing the game? Would love to hear a little bit about your background coming from the great state of Oregon.
So both my grandfathers played growing up. When I was in second grade, one of them put a lacrosse stick in my hand, and I was playing baseball at the time. And as I got older, I eventually had to pick between the two, and was having more fun with lacrosse. So that's what I went with.
Not a unique story, a lot that's pretty cool. A lot of kids choosing lacrosse over baseball last decade or so. What brought you to Penn?
I was in that crazy age and time where kids were, committing when they're freshmen, 14 years old in high school. And so I was going through all the recruiting process going into literally my freshman year of high school. And I was back east for a tournament out in Philly at like the Hill School maybe. And Dad took me to a visit, and I just fell in love with the campus from day one. I liked the prospect of, the Wharton School. And from then on, that's where I just wanted to go.
So Sam, we know we saw in your bio you're quite the high school basketball player. Talk just a little bit about your basketball career up in Oregon, and if you ever matched up with Paolo Banchero, the Duke star.
Yeah, I mean, I loved playing basketball growing up. I think definitely in high school was my, favorite sport and just like favorite atmosphere to be a part of. Quick shout out to all my friends who are killing it at, D1 level now. My boy Matt Lang's at Gonzaga right now, and I got another friend, Joe Wall, out at Seattle U. I never matched up with Paulo Banchero growing up, but I did have the opportunity to go against some really good dudes. There's a guy named Kamaka Hepa who was a pretty good player at Texas, and there's a couple other dudes who went to like Washington and Montana. I think my basketball career is it's been it's translated a lot to my lacrosse game. So, thankful for it all.
So when you go back in the summers, I'd imagine you're playing a lot of basketball, a lot of pickup games, or you stay on the lacrosse field.
Yeah.
Nice.
No, not a lot of lacrosse in the summer. Definitely a lot more hoops with my friends.
That's awesome. If you were to kind of give yourself a comparison to an NBA player's game, who would that be?
I think probably like a combination of I think a Blake Griffin is pretty accurate. Definitely more of a in the post kind of player, but scrappy on the boards and scrappy on D.
You finishing lobs in these pickup games in the summers?
I think, yeah. Yeah, definitely am now. I think I ended up getting off one, two or three dunks in high school. And I think that's like some of my favorite high school memories.
Yeah, that's three more than I had in college in high school basketball. But that's awesome. The atmosphere at Jesuit for Friday night game sounded pretty live.
School was super supportive of athletics, and usually we got a pretty big student crowd. So
that's awesome.
Cool. Well, back to lacrosse. You guys go almost 600 days aside from your exhibition matchup with Cabrini last year. You guys go 600 plus days without playing a team in a different uniform. Like, just give our listeners an idea of what that was like. I know you had the heartbreak ending to 2020, not being able to finish out the season when you guys were poised to make another deep NCAA tournament run. Your 2021 season gets ripped away from you for seemingly no reason at all. Were you guys on a full practice schedule during 2021? What was that like?
Yeah, I mean, I think first, it was brutal, it wasn't fun. And, the Ivy League administrators definitely kept a lot of their student athletes in the dark. Didn't really have any idea of what 2021 was going to look like, was kept, into the dark, like I said, in the dark until, after tuition payments were made. And, during that spring, I'm really proud of all the guys. I think we only had one player who decided to take the semester off, and instead we just focused on getting better individually and getting better as a program. We were on a full practice schedule, going 5 or 6 days a week with inter-squad scrimmages on Saturday. But more importantly, I think what's important to say is just how, I wouldn't have gotten through that tough time without my teammates, and, seeing them all grind alongside me. It was, really inspirational, especially because I was having a really hard time, dealing with just everything.
That's awesome. I mean, obviously not ideal, but to have your brothers beside you and to all be kind of had this goal of 2022 in mind, I'm sure it was kind of that light at the end of the tunnel that really made like everything kind of go at that time and made it all worth it for sure.
Yep, 100%.
During those Saturday scrimmages, you guys ever put something fun on the line, or was it pretty just like go out there, trash talk?
Yeah, a couple team meals. Got to buy someone else on the other team a burger from Shake Shack or something like that. Definitely, without being able to talk trash to the other, another team. Definitely a lot of inter squad trash talking.
Yeah. Did you see any players that kind of really helped, like some guys that really got comfortable playing with each other, kind of got them in the groove without a season? Because a fall could be a big part of like a freshman coming on the scene or something like that. It kind of takes them their freshman year to get in the groove, but a lot of kids just kind of jumped right in after that full year of practice. Or was it just kind of?
Yeah, I think that senior class filled with guys like, Sean Lowry, Mitch Bartolo, and then of course the guys who are still around did a really excellent job just leading us and keeping us, all motivated and sort of our arrows pointing in the same direction. And we had to make do with like driving ourselves 30 minutes just to practice at a local high school field during the fall, and just keep pushing ourselves. And I think all the credit in the world goes to them for where this program and team are at now, and especially for the development of those young guys.
No doubt.
That's unreal, and gotta love to see Lully and Bartolo kind of getting their opportunities at Duke and Rutgers. Right, they're making the most of it for sure. Those guys were great Penn Quakers. It was tough because in 2019 it looked like you guys were all poised for this insane 4-year run. Those heartbreakers to Yale were tough, but you guys were clearly like positioned, like so well positioned to make 2 or 3 real runs at it. One thing like we'd love to hear about, like obviously the Ivy League is the best league in the country this year. I don't think anybody would deny that. Even ACC fanboys, I think, would agree with that. You guys come into the season, a really close loss against a really good Georgetown team, a big win against Duke. You guys look like you might be kind of the odds-on favorite in the Ivy League, like from the get-go. And then, the Ivy League becomes the gauntlet that it is. You got the emergence of Brown and Princeton and Cornell, who everybody thought would be solid, but it kind of felt like in the beginning of the year it was a 2-horse race, right? Yale and Penn. Like a week and a half ago, you guys were 6th in the Ivy League, and you guys didn't really cement a spot until this past weekend once the final results, came out. Just talk to us about the roller coaster that was Ivy League lacrosse in 2022.
I think more important than anything else is emphasizing the fact of just like how young, so many of these Ivy League teams are. And, I may be, a senior in terms of academics, but, only playing the season, I think, I only had those 2019 games and then won 2020 games. So, figuring out our personnel and figuring out our identity has been a theme for us, all year, and figuring out practice versus game are just two entirely different things. And, when you just don't have that much experience under your belt, it's often tough. I'm really proud of this group, the way that we've battled through a bunch of close games and stuck together. And I think it's been pretty special just to see the emergence of the Ivy League this year. And I think the lacrosse gods definitely shine on us, and the fact that, we're able to get in the Ivy League tournament this weekend. So.
Yeah, and not just you guys, but the whole Ivy League. I mean, you guys totally deserved the year and the spotlight that you guys are getting after obviously getting hosed in 2021. So really, really special to see.
Yeah, next year we might see the ACC just shut it down and practice all year to come back and try to get their league rolling like this.
Yeah.
We have a popular question on the podcast that kind of asks who the snapper of the locker room is, who's keeping it light, who's a guy that might not get a lot of credit on Saturdays, but is always snapping it around the locker room. And actually, we asked Brendan Curry this question up at Syracuse, and your running mate Tucker Dordovic was dropped as the guy keeping it light. So you can say yourself if you guys are two hooligans keeping everyone light, but if you want to give a shout out to someone who does it constantly, here's the time.
That is funny that Tucker's that way. I'm not. I think we have a group within the team that's sort of the scout D guys, and they've self-proclaimed named themselves the Stone Cutters. And on the sideline during games, they always bring just so much juice and are not afraid of anyone. And so I think the combination of those guys, shout out, like Tommy Bavuso, Kevin Riccitelli, Emmett Carroll, Devin Varney. I mean, list can go on. Jake Oliver, Matt Hillgartner. Those guys always bring it all the time. So
love that.
That's awesome.
I think that's always a prideful unit. The guys that have to play scout team man down.
the guys soaking just like step downs from Sam Handley.
And coach doesn't even care. He's like, get out, next one in. He's like,
yeah, Stone Cut. I mean, they've taken so much pride and have just really owned, their role. It's been great. Just I think for everyone else on the team, just to see the way that they've embraced the role has really made this team, special and extra close.
Absolutely.
Well, that's awesome. You mentioned earlier you're academically a senior. We don't see you on any of these PLL draft boards, which obviously, you belong there either this year or next year. Can you give us an insight to what your plans are for next year? We feel like you're obviously coming back if you're not on these boards. So we'd love to hear your plans.
So I think what's true is after this season, I'll have 2 extra years of eligibility left. There's no way that I can stretch that out at Penn for, those extra 2 years to remain on, within this program. But, we're going to see in this offseason, we're going to see what the rest of my, co-classmates and I decide, because I think that's what's most important.
Great answer.
Very
love that.
Media professional answer from Sam Handley, ladies and gentlemen. We saw your buddy
that.
Tucker Dordovic dropping a bomb on the college world earlier today, announcing his transfer. So we'll just leave that up to the people to gossip about possibly a Jesuit collab coming back.
Yeah, I mean, that would be pretty special in theory, but we'll see.
Love that. Cool, man. Well, another popular song we throw out the guys are what's the hottest song the Penn Quakers have going in the locker room? It could be after wins, it could be pre-game, something personally you love to throw on, whatever you're thinking, whatever comes to mind.
Yeah, easy answer. We've had this tradition within the Penn Lacrosse, team for as long as, all the old alums that I know have been doing it for years. And after every win, come to the locker room, and song that comes on is Murder on the Dance Floor. And, a lot of guys write in their senior emails and senior reflections that those are some of their best memories at Penn.
Murder on the Dance Floor. That is electric. That is electric.
It's
That's
definitely
awesome.
led by the Stonecutters juice. It's pretty rowdy, man.
Love the Stonecutters call out and the murder on the dance floor. Dude, this has been awesome. Thank you for sitting down, and we're excited to watch this tournament this weekend. It's going to be
Sam
fireworks.
Handley, everybody. Yeah, Ivy League tournament at Brown this weekend. Absolutely cannot wait to watch. See you guys put on a show.
Yeah, we're excited. Thanks, guys.
What an electric interview we just had with Sam there. He's quite the teammate and definitely a guy I'd want in my foxhole.
No doubt. The guy is a man on a mission, clearly. Nothing but love for Sam Handley and the Penn Quakers.
Yeah, he gave us a nice inside look too off recording. He's excited for playoffs as is his team, and we should expect Penn to do some big things late in this tournament.
Yeah, Penn or some Ivy League team. A crazy stat I heard from the weekend. The Ivy League is 38-10 in out of conference play. And I didn't do my necessary due diligence as I usually do. But if you take out the Dartmouth out of conference losses, the losses that come to my mind are Penn losing to Georgetown. Trying to think, Brown losing to UNC early in the year.
Yeah, that was a killer. And that was honestly one that Brown
Harvard to Ohio State.
Yeah, true. Those are some big ones right there that were definitely winnable games for the Ivy League. And
but also no shame in losing to an early season Tar Heel squad, what's turned out to be a good Buckeye team.
Yeah.
And obviously Georgetown, who's a legitimate national championship contender. Those are kind of the losses that come to my mind. They only had 10 of them. Again, take out those Dartmouth losses, almost perfect in out of conference play. So pretty impressive year put together by the Ivy League, obviously.
Yeah, and it's been fireworks in the league too. I mean, a lot of their own losses are coming in league, causing a ridiculous seeding for the Ivy League tournament. Brown ends up hosting. They have 3 co-champions in Cornell, Brown, and Yale. Just super solid league all around, just battling each other. It's almost like you want to run it back.
Yeah, pretty unbelievable. And it's almost like this year in the Ivy League, you'd like to see similar to the Patriot League tournament where you have 6 teams get in, top 2 have a bye, you have the Tuesday quarterfinal games. I really think they deserve it this year. Harvard and Princeton being left out of the Ivy League tournament. Both teams, I think, can play with anybody. I think they've proven that. Princeton's defense can't stop anybody, but their offense is as good as anybody's. This league is insane. The talking heads in our game are not ruling out 6 of these teams getting in, which is just unbelievable. The final seedings weren't decided until the clocks hit 0-0-0 this past weekend in the final weekend of regular season play. Penn came into the day sitting at 6th in the Ivy League. They finished 4th. They had already played all their Ivy League games. They played St. Joe's last week, and I believe they played Albany this weekend. But the Harvard Yale game and the Cornell Princeton game actually decided Penn's fate, which is pretty wild.
Yeah, as Sam said, they got a gift from the gods, the lacrosse gods, and he is not kidding with that. What happened. What, almost a Cinderella story. What needed to happen for arguably, a top 5 team in the country in league happened.
Yeah. I don't think anybody's disappointed to see the Penn Quakers in the Ivy League tournament, but definitely tough break for Harvard and Princeton. I don't think we've seen the last of those programs. Definitely not, maybe not in 2022, and definitely not in years to come. Those two games I mentioned this weekend were absolute fireworks. Cornell's 18-15 win over Princeton was a surprising win for me. I thought Cornell had kind of peaked. Looks like Cornell's rounding into form at the right time. Again, another team putting up high teens on Princeton. Not a good sign for the Tigers, but Cornell seems to be rolling at the right time, and nobody wants to see the Big Red right now.
No, I mean, you hit it on the head. Princeton's young. Their young guys showed up, but Cornell kind of has that battle-tested season, as does Princeton, honestly. But I think the defense for Cornell, even though it was a high-scoring 1-goal game, just ended up being the difference in this one, being just a little bit better than Princeton's defense, which is been kind of the calling card for Princeton all year, kind of their Achilles heel, their defense letting in so many goals per game.
Yeah. Cornell's headliners were definitely familiar faces. Piatelli at 5-1, Michael Long 3-4, and our guy CJ Kirst with 4 goals.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely one of the best pure goal scorers in the country. Cornell's offense is dangerous. Going to be, I foresee a lot of high teens this weekend in Providence at Stevenson Field at Brown for sure. Harvard Yale also is insane. 17-16 overtime win for Yale. Just both teams insane offensive depth on display. Just a wild display of Lax.
Yeah, you saw the crowd too in New Haven. What a proud alumni to be in that.
Kyle's favorite facility ever.
Wrong. That'd be Ridley Athletic Complex in Baltimore, Maryland.
A close second.
But just, I mean, in terms of the stadium, yeah, I appreciate lacrosse facilities being updated. Football, you see every 2 years, millions of dollar facilities to keep recruits. I think to get recruits, you need to have the facilities, and Yale clearly seemed to get that memo. And it built out more fan sections that was filled. Before they had one grandstand, probably had like 2,000 max. Now they could probably go 6. So
yeah, it was a beautiful day in a packed house at this new facility. Matt Brandow. Again, I still don't think enough people are talking about Matt Brandow. Just consistently having at least 6 points a game. Another 4-2 day. Chris Lyons with 5 goals. Brad Sharp 1-4. Leo Johnson, Greenwich, Connecticut native, freshman, with a solid 2-2 day. And then this kid, Thomas Bragg, puts in a hat trick from the midfield and absolutely gasses the game winner from deep, low to high.
Yeah, he liked what he saw. One little storyline was Kyle Mullins exited the game early with an injury. He was exactly at 50% when that happened. So, it's not like he was white hot, but you'd like to go with your season tested goalie in this down the stretch of this game. And that step down was absolute smoke. And I love to see a guy get the arms back and blow one from 18 yards.
So enough about last weekend. The Ivy League tournament matchups and seedings are set. You've got the 2-seeded Cornell Big Red against the 3-seeded Yale Bulldogs, and the number 1 overall seed and host Brown Bears playing our Penn Quakers. What are you feeling, Kyle?
I mean, coming off that interview, I'm feeling Quakers to upset the hometown team, but Brown is, no pun intended, a bear at home with their crowd. They get the band out. It's going to be an electric Brown favored environment, and hosting these tournaments. Brown hasn't done it, I believe, since 2016. When they hosted the tournament and then got to host Navy in the playoffs. So, I mean, and then for the second game, I mean, Cornell's rolling, but the league all year has been a toss-up. So, I mean, you can't count Yale out of that game at all. I think it's whoever shows up in Rhode Island is going to win that game.
Yeah, I think both games are going to be absolute burners. I do think it's going to be really difficult for Brown to beat Penn twice. I've been wrong about Brown seemingly every step of the way for the last 5 weeks. So maybe I'm screwing over our Penn Quakers here by predicting they're going to win. But I think it's going to be really difficult to beat that Penn team twice. So I think Penn's going to win that game. And I think Yale's going to beat Cornell. I think Yale's been there before. Yale just seems to find a way to win these games this year and in recent years, whether it's an overtime game, high scoring, low scoring. They just find a way to scratch and claw and win these games. And I think we're going to see a Yale-Penn Ivy League championship, and we'll save our predictions on that for later in the show. I just could not be more excited for the Ivy League tournament. And frankly, all conference tournaments this weekend.
A lot of midweek lax this week with the Big Ten kicking off their tournament, as well as the Patriot League. You've got the two first round games for the Patriot League on Tuesday, and then the Big Ten and mostly all the other leagues on Thursday, and then leading into the semifinal championships over the weekend. It's really exciting.
Yeah. Patriot League matchups this week are kind of interesting. I think, Loyola didn't have an easy time with Bucknell earlier in the year, but I think Loyola's playing really well right now. Bucknell's really cooled off from they got hot kind of mid-season. I think Loyola's going to dispatch of them relatively easily this week, Tuesday.
Yeah, I mean, just to touch on that before we skip over that erroneous comment, it was a 13-9 victory, and I think Bucknell pumped in a couple at the end, so it was a sure win for the Hounds at home earlier in the year. It was not a tight game by any means, but Bucknell and Loyola go back to have scrappy games. Bucknell is no team to take lightly, and it's the tournament, so anything can happen.
Yeah, no doubt. Honestly, but before we get into conference tournament implications, would love to hear your top performer from the weekend, Kyle.
I'm going with John Piatelli. He continues to show up and have big games, and he's kind of you think Matt Brandau's underrated or not talked about enough.
True.
This kid's been pumping in 6 or 7 goals a game, and I'm like, what is going on with these people? And this guy's like, I have him as a shoe-in first team all Ivy League the way he's played.
Yeah, Piatelli's got 51 goals, 14 assists on the year. I don't disagree. Not enough people are talking about the Piatelli and Curse show up in Ithaca. CJ Curse with 42 goals and 21 assists, both of 65 and 63 points respectively.
Yeah, I mean, Curse is definitely the more balanced attackman with balanced numbers, but the amount of goals Piatelli and the clutch ones too. He's just who you want on the field. You feel very comfortable on offense with him around the cage, and he's going to give you a good look. So that's my performer of the week. He showed out.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Jackson Reed, Buckeye midfielder. Had a huge game for Ohio State, 5 goals in the Big Ten quarterfinal against rival Michigan. They beat Michigan 16-10. That's actually the second time they beat Michigan in 6 days, in a span of 6 days. Jackson Reed had 5-1 just in that game 6 days prior. So in 2 games against the Wolverines in 1 week, he's got 10-1. So I'm going to go with Jackson Reed. Got to love his game. Canadian coming out of the midfield. He's going to be a great box player. Was drafted to the NLL earlier this year. I can't remember what team. But also I think will be a strong PLL midfielder as well.
Yeah, he's a slick little player. He had a breakout game versus Harvard, I remember, down in Florida, that had a lot of implications on the line with the Ivy League. So it ended up being a big win for them.
Yeah, that Harvard win is starting to look more and more attractive every week for their RPI and potential at-large hopes. The Buckeyes are heading into an interesting time. I think it's safe to say no one's going to upset Maryland in that Big Ten tournament. But they've got a massive game against Rutgers this weekend, kind of a revenge game, this Thursday, kind of a revenge game. They got kind of smoked by Rutgers earlier in the year. To me, it's kind of a win and in game for the Buckeyes. If they lose, I think they're out. I think the Big Ten only gets 2 teams. But I guess while we're talking about that, just like NCAA tournament scenarios, like we got 10 AQs and 8 at-larges. Those at-larges are going to come at a premium and be hard to come by, especially with all these Ivies probably getting in. Yeah,
that's the thing. It's tough for the ACC this year, and even a solid Patriot League team. BU put on a great year as well as Army. So you got to think one Patriot League is going to get in just the way the rest of the league did out of conference. But I think depending on upsets in the league tournament, we could see 2. And the Ivy League's hoping for no upsets.
Yeah, the Ivy League teams, I think Princeton and Harvard are hoping for no upsets. I firmly believe that the 4 teams that got into the Ivy League tournament are in no matter what at this point. But Princeton and Harvard, who definitely can make a case, definitely have a strong case to make for the NCAA tournament are praying that there are no upsets and all these conference tournaments go as planned. But that's not always how it works. There's always an upset here or there.
That is true. I mean, just to, go over it, the American East hosted in Burlington. Catamounts locked down the number one, going undefeated in league. They're the favorite. I think they're a scary team to play in the playing game or to have number one seed play. Then moving on, the ASUN is in Huntsville, Atlanta. Okay. Utah's
yeah. Okay, it's right. Utah's hosting it in Atlanta.
The fans there are going to be off the rocker. Utah's hosting, but the league, you got to think they're going to take care of business. But Air Force is no slouch. They've got a lot of veteran attack. When we saw
Air
early
Force
in
and
the
Robert
year.
Morris are no slouches.
Absolutely. And then the Big East tournament is obviously hosted by the number one, which is Georgetown, and they're the clear-cut favorite. I don't think there's going to be too many fireworks in that conference, but again, you got to show up and play the damn thing. And then the Big Ten, of course, is at Maryland. So it just
please don't forget about the CAA. Delaware, my Blue Hens are hosting the CAA tournament.
Okay, I was moving down the list, but okay, good job. Maryland is coincidentally hosting the Big Ten this year. It moves around every year to spread love. So their kind of dream season kind of continues with this home field advantage in this ridiculous season they've had. They're going to be a bear to beat anywhere, especially in College Park. And then Cam, tell us about the CA and the team you've pegged to win the national championship from episode 1.
So that is a slight exaggeration, but I have had them as a dark horse team since our early January episode. The Delaware Blue Hens sit at 9-5. They scratched and clawed and earned their way to be the host of the CAA tournament. I think they're the most dangerous team to their crown is the UMass Minutemen. Would love to ultimately see a Delaware UMass CAA championship game. I think that'd be a game definitely worth watching. Be a great display of lacrosse, be very physical brand of lacrosse with also some very skilled offensive players, particularly on the Delaware side of the field.
But don't sleep on Towson. They're number 2 for a reason. They took care of business in conference. And even though Drexel's hosting another tournament that shares the love, Towson's been putting up numbers, and they're talented and gritty. Colby Smith is going to be a top 10 PLL pick predicted here, depending on, which PLL team needs an LSM.
He's put together a really nice year. Heading to the MAC, St. Bonaventure is not hosting, as our close friend of the pod, Brett Dobson, explained to us last week. They are the number 1 seed, but Marist will be hosting this tournament. What do you call
it, the Wacky Mac?
Yeah, I'm calling it the Wacky Mac, but I think the number 1 seed. I think Brett Dobson takes over this tournament. That's my prediction.
As he should. He's locked in and has been dreaming of this moment, and to play a 15 seed coming out of a playoff playing game win. You got to think the Mac's in a playing game, along with the NEC. St. Joe's, I think this is a done deal for them. They have an old, experienced team, and they've racked up a lot of wins this year.
St. Joe's has some veterans. I watched St. Joe's earlier this year play Delaware, lose to Delaware. It was a midweek game in February. It was actually a great game, really back and forth, very, very physical. Both teams have athletes. St. Joe's is going to be a tough team, most likely coming out of the NEC. Patriot League.
Before we fire in, we've got some Dog U listeners. I want to give them some love because they're sitting at number 2 seed. They can take care of business from in which Hobart, which is also a great team. You could say we saw them play at the Dome versus Syracuse, and they put on quite a show. So they're no sleeper, and the Dogs in the tournament can do some things. So I think the next going to be a little closer. I think it's St. Joe's tournament to lose. But yeah.
Yeah, we'll get into our quick picks later. And a special edition this week, not games, but actual conference winners. Also, moving into the Patriot League, you got BU hosting this tournament. I think it's going to be a really cool scene in Boston. Huge milestone for the BU Terriers hosting the Patriot League tournament. They put together a hell of a season. Will be really interesting to see the potential BU Army rematch after a 1-goal absolute battle, 15-14 win for the Army Black Knights this past Friday. They handed BU their first in-conference loss. The Patriot League tournament is going to be extremely interesting. Kyle's Hounds are not going to go away quietly.
No, that Lehigh game was honestly one of the game of the years for me. Being biased as a fan too puts a little more on it, but also just in terms of what went down and the ebbs and flows of the games. I thought it was a spectacular matchup with Bailey Savio and Mike Cecilberger, two massive dudes that are absolutely ripped, but they were battling the whole game. Cassis was screaming for hold calls. I thought it was pretty much a clean battle. But I think Bailey Savio came out with the upper hand in that battle. He had a goal late in the game. That was a huge swing.
What else is new? Savio showing up big for the Loyola Greyhounds in a must-win game.
He's 6 Patriot League ground ball record. Bailey Savio, Patriot League faceoff wins. Savio.
Who's number 2 in both of those categories?
Older and close friend of mine in the podcast, Graham Savio, a Loyola Fogo 4 years before Bailey. So it's just been a Savio train at the Faceoff X running havoc in the Patriot League. But Bailey's 6 all-time faceoffs attempted. There hasn't been a game really. Earlier this year, they threw in another face here and there, but this was a huge matchup, and the difference was at the X, and also Spencer, the Lehigh goalie, was keeping them in it early. Loyola went up 5-0, and the guy was making ridiculous saves, and they were still down 5-0. So if he had some sort of an average game, it would have been the Hounds the whole way. But he kept them in it, and Lehigh's offense got going, and made it a tight game. We actually ended up going to overtime. I thought the difference late in the game was the penalties Lehigh caused. They got a lot of stupid penalties that were some serious time. One was a 3-minute lock-in to end the game, and Loyola scored right off the bat, ended up holding the ball to get possession overtime and finishing on that man-up possession. So it kind of just got ripped away from Lehigh, but it was a electric senior day down at Ridley to start this Patriot League playoff, which is going to be fireworks as well once you get past the Tuesday games.
I think the Tuesday games, have potential to be very, very competitive. But yeah, once you move into the weekend, we're
gonna catch that rematch.
Yeah, you got chances for some big time rematches with BU and Army, Loyola and Lehigh. I'm sure Loyola wants another piece of Army, vice versa with BU as well.
And Lehigh. That was an overtime game too. BU Lehigh was an overtime game.
A league that really kind of beat each other up this year. Definitely some interesting rematches coming in the Patriot League. Last but not least, we want to give love to the SoCon. Our Jacksonville Dolphins secured the number 1 seed. Unfortunately, they're not hosting it. It will be at High Point this year. Cannot wait to see some SoCon lax. Cannot wait to see Jacksonville back on the tube. Can't wait.
How about VMI sneaking in at the 4 seed in the SoCon? I love it.
Good for VMI. Yeah, no, the Keydets of Virginia Military Institute are they're a solid little squad. Definitely an easy team to root for.
But the Finns are going to take care of business.
Yeah.
And the championship game, I expect it close early. And then kind of a pull away in the second half, but we'll get to that later on the predictions. That was a serious conference tournament breakdown coming to you from Snapping Towels. If you didn't get your eyes on any schedules or don't know where stuff's going down, you could always hit us up.
Yeah, please do. again, just going back to some of these illustrative NCAA tournament scenarios, 10 AQs, that number's grown over the years, with the kind of adding these programs and conferences. Only 8 at-larges. Some teams are going to get left out. It's going to be really uncharted territory for the game of lacrosse and for any recent viewers to only see most likely 2 ACC teams in the tournament. Virginia's a lock, and you've got Duke and Notre Dame battling it out this weekend in essentially an NCAA tournament game. To me, the winner's in and the loser's out.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's kind of how the committee's looking at it. Quint was kind of nudging that way on air on the Duke UNC game, kind of saying they're getting 2 in, and it's going to be a toss-up. Duke's playing great ball, but so is Notre Dame, and I'm really excited for that game. I know
both are hot.
Both are hot. Earlier in the year, it was kind of one team was hot, one team wasn't. It's kind of how the ACC's been all year in regards to the top 3. But yeah, I'm excited for an early, especially because the ACC doesn't have a tournament. That this is kind of their, take UVA out of it. They got to buy in the whole ACC tournament. They want it. So it's kind of the ACC tournament championship to get into the March or
this is a playoff game.
Coined. Yeah,
this is a playoff game. That's what it is. This is essentially a play-in game for the NCAA tournament. I do think the winner is a lock. The loser.
Also, what a play-in game! You usually see like a NEC and a MAC play or something like that, but yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, the way the Kavanaugh brothers are playing right now, and the way Duke's defense is playing right now, anchored by our boy Max Adler. It's going to be quite the game. Duke's offense is also clicking on all cylinders right now too. It seems like they've kind of found their groove. And I whoever wins this game, it's going to be a very dangerous team in the NCAA tournament. Both teams have Final Four pedigrees, a lot of experience in the NCAA tournament. They're both playing very, very well. Both have hot goaltenders. And we like to say anything can happen with a hot goaltender.
I mean, realistically, whoever wins this will be on the road playing an Ivy League.
Maybe
I see that happening. I don't.
Maybe
they could be as low as going to a Patriot League school, depending on what happens. But
I don't. So I think Quint said this, and I agree with him. He and I thought it was really interesting. He said, I think that choosing the field this year, he said, if the conference tournaments go as planned, will be not that difficult. He said what will be extremely difficult is actually seeding these teams. I don't know. I have a tough time seeing them putting an ACC team on the road. Like, I think either Notre Dame or Duke will be a seeded team. And host a Patriot League winner or something like that.
I think the fact that both these teams are bubble teams now, like one team's not going to be in the championship or in the playoffs, you can't have the other team as a home game with so many like higher ranked, like Georgetown's going to be home. A ton of Ivies are going to be home. Like, you're going to put Jacksonville on the road and have Duke at a home game.
Jacksonville's going to be on the road.
I know. I just think this reminds me of when Duke went on the road when they had Miles Jones and all those guys and ended up losing to the Hounds. No big deal at home in a tournament game, and everyone thought they should host, and because they beat us in a head-to-head earlier in the year, but it was just off wins and losses. And Duke's had a year that's had a lot of losses, and Notre Dame's had a year where they haven't played that many lacrosse games. Honestly, it's kind of crazy. One team's played like almost 20, and one team's played 14.
I know, it really is unbelievable. I'm not a huge proponent of early February lacrosse, but it is a little bit irresponsible. Like, for Notre Dame to only be 7-4 right now,
11 games, and
Duke to be 11-5. Like, it's just odd, and it makes it for just kind of. awkward and just weird decisions to be made at the end of the year. And it's almost like you're not comparing apples to apples when you're putting these teams next to each other. It's like 16 games. One's going to have played 17 games. One's going to have played 12.
So does Duke deserve a home game?
I mean, if they beat this Notre Dame team, here's the thing. Duke's schedule, honestly, we've talked a lot about schedules on Snapping Towels. We were very hard on the Michigan Wolverines.
But also correct on the Michigan Wolverines. We haven't talked about that yet. That call was, we said they're going to go 7-0 to start the year and then 0-7 on the back end. And I know our Michigan fans are going to be mad about this call, but we got to give credit where it's due. But moving on to schedule.
We were on the money on that, but we're going to talk about teams that are still in the mix. Duke's schedule is honestly bad, which is odd because Duke is supposed to have, next to Hopkins and Maryland, they're supposed to have the best schedule in the country. It's kind of what they pride themselves on.
Well, traditionally they did. I think they got let down a little bit. Loyola didn't have that good of a year.
Denver and Loyola were letdowns.
So, and Syracuse and North Carolina, like we thought those teams were going to be hitting this year, and it's just.
But they lost to Syracuse.
True. That makes it worse. I forgot about that.
They lost to Cuse.
That was an insane game.
Some of their
but that loss makes it even worse.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. Like their schedule's bad. Robert Morris, Vermont, Manhattan. They're lucky Jacksonville is good, but they lost to Jacksonville. Denver isn't good this year. Delaware, I think they're good, but a lot of people don't. They have Penn on the schedule. They lost to Penn. High Point, Richmond. Loyola's down this year. Towson's not that good. Syracuse is down. They lost to Cuse. North Carolina, and then the ACC is down. So their schedule really ended up being disappointing.
The win against Virginia was huge.
Yeah, I mean that's their season right there.
These last 3 games have been their season on the line, with the Notre Dame one coming up.
On the other hand, you have Notre Dame's schedule, who's played 5 fewer games. But aside from a Detroit Mercy Powder Puff 24-2 win, you got Georgetown, Maryland, Ohio State as your out-of-conference games.
Marquette.
Yeah, Marquette, which is meaningless. They smoke Marquette.
Yeah, so I would say with Duke winning, they'd be on the road. If Notre Dame wins, I think there's a home game at Notre Dame.
I think that's fair. I
don't see you put the Duke. I just think Duke's not going to be seated that high if they're on the bubble, and Notre Dame hasn't played enough games to have it's just kind of weird.
Yeah,
I need Notre Dame to have 2 more out of conference games against maybe a Jacksonville or a good soak, like a Richmond
or an Army or something,
or an Army or a BU. I just don't get it.
Yeah, no, it's odd. But yeah, so anyway, this is a win and in game, lose, most likely out. Should be fireworks. Should be a pleasure to watch. Moving on, I think let's hit our quick picks.
I love it.
Kyle, let's start with the Atlantic Sun. Who do you have winning the conference?
I've got the Utes. I think with their new coach from Robert Morris, they get up and down better than anyone maybe in the country. They really wheel and deal. We saw them beat a lot of good teams as Vermont. We saw them take down our Finns. So I got to say this is a Utes tournament to lose.
Yeah, I'm going to concur on that one. I got the Utah Utes. I think they're head and shoulders above everybody else in the conference. Really a credit to this program, a very new program. And they've done a hell of a job in a short period of time. And also within that short period of time, you include the COVID year and, the kind of weird 2021 year. Pretty impressive what they've done amongst other programs who have been around for a while. Let's move into the NEC. I think we're both on the same page here, aren't we?
Yeah, I'm going to say Joseph's. They've been really improving as the year's gone on. Late in the season, losing to Penn by 2. We know they're an old, gritty team. I think teams like that do well in their conference tournaments, been there, done that kind of thing, and then as well in the tournament to kind of ruffle some feathers.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. St. Joe's, a veteran-laden team, 12-3, undefeated in conference play. They've got some really dangerous offensive players. They've given some good teams really tough games this year. They just took Penn to overtime last week. Gave Delaware a tough game. Like I think the St. Joe's team is for real. Could be a sleeper team heading into the NCAA tournament. I think they're dangerous. I think St. Joe's wins the NEC this year.
I love it.
Moving to the America East, Kyle, give me your winner.
I'm going to Catamounts. I think it's a no-brainer to me. I think Kyle Cornell is a stud. He's going to have a bunch of saves throughout the whole tournament. I think they're hosting it. I don't know how many times they've hosted it, but it's definitely not a lot. This could be the first one. So I think it's the Mounts.
Yeah, we're going to agree. Again, 3 for 3 conferences. I promise it'll get a little bit more interesting. But no, I think I like this Vermont team. We had them as a sleeper team, a dark horse team back in our first episode in January. Cornell between the pipes is a serious goaltender. And I think he's an honorable mention, All-American caliber goaltender, potentially a professional one day too. But yeah, I think Vermont takes the America East. Yep. Moving on to our former league, the Patriot League. It's going to be an interesting weekend. Very, very interesting.
First time Boston Terriers host. I got the Hounds.
Shocker. Kyle has the
Let's
Greyhounds.
Go Hounds. I'm a fan, man. Johnny Drama reference.
Yeah, it's a pretty good Val Kilmer. I would say I'm going with BU, and I know they're the hosts. I know they're the number 1 seed, and they only had 1 loss in conference. I still think it's kind of a wild card pick. I think it's an upset pick. I think BU is going to win the Patriot League and go to the NCAA tournament for the first time in program history. I'm rolling with the Terriers. I watched them play Army on Friday night, and they gave Army every last thing they could handle. And Army's a really good team. We've seen Army beat some extremely good teams. I think it's going to be tough for Army.
I love it.
I think it's going to work in Army's in BU's favor that they lost in a 1-goal battle on Friday night to Army. I think it's going to work in their favor.
Yeah, as do I. I do hope it's I have Loyola winning, so obviously I hope it's a BU Loyola championship, but I just think the 2 offensives are fireworks, and whatever happens in between the lines happens. So that I will definitely have eyes on, as well as pretty much all of these tournaments.
Yeah. Speaking of tournaments, the SoCon, Kyle, I think I know who you have here. We agree. We're both going Dolphins here. I think Colin Hinton and Jack Dolan are going to provide the senior leadership and the excellent play necessary to lead their teams here. Jacksonville's loaded, man. They've got players everywhere. They're very, very deep, including at goalie. They got 2 real goalies. And I think a guy like Jack Dolan, who has had an incredible career there. He's the all-time leading point scorer there. He's been a little bit quiet this year.
Amazing. I think it's player. Yeah.
I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing for the Finns.
Production's coming from everywhere.
Exactly. He's guarded by a pole. He's not pushing it. He's just playing the game. He's letting the game come to him, and frankly, letting it come to his teammates. I think we're going to see a big weekend from Jack Dolan. He's going to cement himself as what he is, a Jacksonville all-time great.
Yeah, and High Point and Richmond in the semis of that tournament is going to be fireworks as well. Both teams.
Richmond just smoked High Point, but I think High Point's going to come for revenge for sure.
Yeah, I don't see that happening again at home. They're going to have to give them their locker room. No, I'm just kidding. All right.
CAA, the Colonial Athletic Conference.
I'm going the Minutemen. I've picked them a couple times to upset earlier in the year. They came through for me. they're hardcore. I was gonna go with Towson, but I think my Minutemen with their stud goaltender are gonna be jonesing for a 3 seed, winning it all. And anything can happen this CA. The rankings really don't mean much.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a wild tournament, but I'm going with my Delaware Blue Hens. I think they're loaded on offense, and they were made for this. All right, on to the Wacky Mac, Kyle.
Ooh, you already know, and I think our listeners know as well. I'm going with the Bonnies. I think the goaltending is going to be too much for these guys in the MAC. I think shooters are going to be overthinking some shots, and it's going to be a good Maris Bonnies championship.
Yeah, no, I think the Bonnies are going to take this one as well. Obviously, Brett Dobson is an elite tender, but I don't think anyone should overlook the 2 Ontario natives that St. Bonnie's has at attack. Sean Wesley and Jake Rosa, both are serious goal scorers. Sean Wesley has 29 and 22 on the year for 51 points, and his running mate Jake Rosa with 24 goals and 15 assists. Those two can ball down an attack. I think they walk away with the MAC crown here.
Love it. All right, the Big Ten. We could skip on to the next one.
Yep, Terps are going to run away with this one. I have no doubt in my mind about that.
Yeah, I mean, I hope it's Terps Rutgers. I think that 2-3 semifinal game is going to be better. Ohio State Rutgers is going to be better than they're going to play. It's going to be Hopkins Rutgers, and then Ohio State Maryland, or vice versa.
No, it's the semis are Ohio State Rutgers.
Correct. Yeah. So I think that game's going to be the one to watch.
Yeah. I agree, big time.
With fireworks, and then the championship won't really matter, especially at home. That just, these kids are just next game mentality. It's very impressive, and hats off to Tillman.
Yeah, I think Rutgers is a really good team. I do think if Rutgers makes it to the championship, if they make it past Ohio State, I think that they have a chance at giving Maryland a little bit of a run. Rutgers has done some really nice things this year. Maryland smoked them 3 or 4 weeks ago. It's not easy to beat a team twice. Definitely not easy to spank a team twice. I think the Scarlet Knights could compete in that game, but I don't see them beating the Maryland Terps. Moving on to another conference that isn't quite as lopsided, but there's definitely a heavy favorite, the Big East.
I'm going with the Hoyas. I think it's their tournament. They're hosting. They have the season going. They've got the leadership down low, first team All-American defenseman and goaltender, sprinkled in with a bunch of second, third team and honor mental guys on offense. So yeah, I think it's Georgetown's kind of year. I know they'll be losing some guys next year that have been staples for a couple of years. So I think they get it done at home.
Yeah, I'm going with the Hoyas as well. Earlier we talked about players that nobody's talking about in Piatelli and Brandow. Not enough people are talking about the Georgetown Hoyas. They haven't been on ESPN aside from their game with Penn, which is Penn's first game of the year, Georgetown's second or third game back in February. You don't see a lot of highlights on Instagram of the Hoyas. They've been kind of quiet, haven't been too loud on social media. This team is stacked. I think Georgetown wins the Big East running away, and they go into the NCAA tournament with a serious chance, not only at a Final Four run, but to ultimately give the Terps a run for their money for the national championship.
I hope it shakes out and we don't get a Final Four. Actually, they're going to be the 2 seed if they take care of business. So that's how it line up to be. So
Georgetown's safe to say they're the 2 seed.
That'd be awesome. I would enjoy that thoroughly. But it's a little rare to see the 1 play 2 in the championship, but we'll get onto that later in the tournament. Let's talk Ivy League. We opened up the show with them, and then this is the tournament that everyone has eyes on because of the competitive league that it's been all year.
Yeah, I know. I earlier gave a little bit of a sneak peek as to what I felt would go down in the semifinal games. I'm predicting a Yale Penn Ivy League championship at Stevenson Field in Providence, Rhode Island. and Penn finally gets over the hump here after 3 heartbreaks in 2019 to the Yale Bulldogs, including the Ivy League championship and including the national quarterfinal game. I think Penn comes in here, takes care of business, finally climbs to the top of the Ivy League, and Sam Handley and company leave with at least an Ivy League ring this year.
I love that. I mean, Penn kind of saw the white light, as they say, being 6th in the league before the weekend, having things work out for them. They got in this tournament due to goal differential and head-to-head wins. That was inside source reported, but I'm going with the Big Red. And I love Sam Handley and what he did during that interview and his game overall, and him as a human. Big supporter. He's going to be pissed when he hears this. Don't hold it against me. We need some contrast, and it's too big of a tournament to have the same winner. I'm going Big Red. Coach Busick, fire him on the show after the NCAA tournament, because he's all business.
Would be an epic win for Connor Busick.
I'm going the Big Red, just storming into Rhode Island, showing them what they've got. Got skilled. CJ Kerr's only a sophomore, which is more impressive, but what seems like a veteran group down there on offense in the attack. And then hopefully Erland gets hot and they make a run at it.
Yeah, I mean, it's the only tournament
all 4 teams could win.
Yeah, it's the only tournament where all 4 teams can win. And part of my Penn prediction has some similarities to my BU prediction. I really think that Penn's loss to Brown is going to help them. I think the fact that they're playing Brown off the bat, I just can't see them losing to Brown twice. Similarly to BU, I think it would have been really difficult for them to beat Army twice. So having that 1-goal loss under your belt, I think it's going to help Penn, that loss to Brown, and they're going to be hungrier than ever once they get to that championship game.
Absolutely. I mean, the interview we had with Sam Handley was just a light into how hard this league's been all year, and kind of coming off the empty season as far as COVID. It's really been fireworks all season. So you got to tune into the Ivy League championship.
All right. Well, that does it for our quick picks. We'll see how we do next week. We'll be sure to compare our predictions with the actual results. As far as specific games go, Kyle, you got a marquee matchup that is a can't miss for our listeners?
Ooh, aside from the tournaments, I think aside from Virginia, the ACC tournament, like we're talking about, is this Duke Notre Dame game. I think the marquee matchup for me is that ACC kind of final season fireworks show that's going to be held in South Bend. I'm going Duke Notre Dame, but also Ohio State Rutgers is going to be a cracker as well. Just early tournament action.
Well, Kyle just stole my thunder there. Ohio State Rutgers is my marquee matchup.
Let's go.
It's going to be a great game. Kyle hit it on the head earlier when we were discussing the Big Ten tournament. This is the game to watch in the Big Ten tournament. Maryland obviously is the favorite, and they're obviously a lock for the NCAA tournament. I think Rutgers has earned an at-large lock at this point. I think Ohio State's on the bubble, and if they get this Rutgers win, I think they're in. It's a win and in game for the Buckeyes. If they lose, they're on the bubble, I think most likely on the outside looking in. So, a playoff game here for the Buckeyes in every sense of the word. Both teams have excellent players at every position. I think both teams are good enough to at least run with every team in the country. Both teams got spanked by Maryland, but I think both squads would be very anxious for a rematch with the Terps. But yeah, I think Ohio State Rutgers is going to be an excellent game.
Absolutely. Well, we're ready for playoff ball here on Snapping Towels, and this weekend's going to be electric. So Cam, I'm excited to watch it, and we'll be talking throughout the whole shindig.
Heck yeah. Can't wait for episode 15. Thanks for listening, everybody.